As we predicted on this channel, popcorn, there'll be a scarcity during party nominations. Yeah, the drama we predicted during nominations will be so much that in fact the real elections, the general elections, will be very relaxed. Yeah, popcorn not in such high demand. And isn't that what has unfolded? We have seen more than drama. People winning nominations, and then the certificate is given to somebody else, which is against the law. Yeah, because a party is allowed to give somebody a direct ticket, but a party is not allowed to invent its own rules when it comes to a party nomination. Yeah, the rules of fair play and the laws of Kenya kick in, which cannot be overruled. It doesn't matter which party it is, whose party it is. But the focus of this video today is some very serious trouble looming for Deputy President William Samoei Ruto as a result of the recent nominations, and especially the very chaotic nominations in a constituency called Nandi Hills, where there's a very famous controversial legislator called Alfred Keter. I believe there's no Kenyan who has never heard of this legislator. He has always been in the news, fighting for the rights of the common man, fighting for the rights of his people in Nandi Hills. He has quite a track record. But he doesn't like Ruto, and Ruto doesn't like him. However, the consequences, and you see, you cannot understand these consequences without knowing some inside information, including information I'm yet to see anywhere about the Kipsigis and the Nandi communities in the Rift Valley, which we all need to understand before we can even begin to understand the politics at play here. Yeah. So karibu sana. This again should be a super fascinating show for you. But a quick one. Yeah. I need to pose a question. And this question is from my ebook, Let the Blood Flow, which focuses on the clashes. The seeds of the very unfortunate clashes of 2008 were planted and watered a long time ago. And it's very unfortunate, a lot of very famous people we all know were very active in planting those seeds, which ended up causing so much problems for the nation called Kenya in 2008. And indeed, it is still a crisis for Kenya even in 2022. So who was this individual? And what was he really up to? Stay with me until the end of this video and I will answer that question for you. It's an important question and an important answer to understand going forward in our local politics, because these issues are going to re-emerge again in a big way in our elections. Anyway, let me not waste any more time. Stay with me till the end, get that info. But for now, let's get down to business. Karibu sana. What has unfolded during UDA nominations in the constituency called Nandi Hills is most fascinating. Of course, Azimio supporters are very happy. Yeah. Many of them, naive in politics, are declaring, this is final confirmation. Raila is winning. UDA are finished. Yeah. And of course we know if something happened in Azimio, and indeed there's a lot happening. Yeah. For instance, in Nairobi, we know how people respond. They say, aye, this is great news. Ruto will win by 10 million votes. Yeah, they like pulling out that figure from nowhere. That's the analysis. Or that's the idea of analyzing politics. But let us dive deeper into what unfolded in the Nandi Hills so that we all learn something going forward. And not only that, I also want to deal with a very interesting, super fascinating subject or topic. That is the different ways of dealing with a rebel. You know, somebody who's against you, against your agenda. Yeah. The way DP Ruto deals with rebels became very clear in the Nandi Hills. We know, those of us who have been around for some time, how Raila deals with rebels. Yeah. I must quickly add, both tactics by these two politicians of dealing with rebels leave a lot to be desired. So what exactly happened in Nandi Hills? Yeah, for those who may not have any idea. Very quickly, wildly popular legislator for this constituency, indeed the incumbent, controversial Alfred Keter, won the UDA nomination. Okay? But then the UDA party decided to investigate alleged complaints that emerged from this nomination. But their ruling on the matter was very peculiar. They said there was fiddling. There was evidence of fiddling in that by-election. And I agree, but it's not the way they were saying. Okay? And therefore they decided, instead of ordering a repeat nomination, which is the fair thing to do, which is the legal thing to do, by the way, they decided to hand over the nomination certificate to the person who came in second, a Mr. Bernard Kitur. Yep, just like that. Now, there's a lot that happened in Nandi Hills. Even as Bon Alfred Keter appeared before his supporters, holding the nomination certificate at the end of the nomination exercise, before it was disputed, he told his supporters that he had been told that he's wasting his time, that actually the nomination certificate will be issued to Bwana Kitur in Nairobi, and that what he was holding was a useless piece of paper. And of course that came to pass. Exactly what he had been told. Now up to that point, the Nandi Hills UDA nomination had really not attracted widespread national interest. Actually, this happened when a man called Caleb Kusitani, who himself lost a nomination, came out and appealed to the Nandi Hills voters, to reject Bon Alfred Keter. Why? Because Alfred Keter is not one of them. In other words, is not a Nandi. He hails from the Kipsigis sub-community within the Kalenjin. Now, I don't know if Bwana Kusitani was feeling very safe, because when he made these remarks, he was speaking in Kalenjin. Maybe he thought people wouldn't translate it for those who don't understand that language. But if that is what he thought, he was very wrong, because there was such a huge outcry amongst the Kenyan online community. And of course, those who are supporting Azimio are now very happy. They're imagining that this incident will split the two communities, the Nandi and the Kipsigis, in their support for Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. And they believe that this will earn Baba extra votes. Yeah, because Baba is already winning, according to many. This will just add more votes. So the landslide will be bigger, including votes from Kalenjin Rift Valley. Sadly, I'm so sorry to tell you, that is not true. The Kipsigis and the Nandis are joined at the hip. They have such a long history together that something like this, I can tell you very confidently, will have zero effect in the votes that the Deputy President receives. Yeah, I'll explain in a minute why. But I'm so sorry to burst your bubble. But on this channel we deal with the reality of politics. Now the Kipsigis and the Nandis go a long way back. Many people don't know this, but the Nandis, the Nandi community, have the distinction of being the African tribe that resisted the British, yeah, in a war or a battle for the longest time possible. And that is a record the Nandi hold for the entire continent of Africa. Oh yes! At the time, of course, the Nandi were led by their legendary military genius leader, the Orkoyot at that time, a very famous man called Koitalel Arap Samoei, yeah, who led the Nandi in resisting the very heavily armed British, yeah, who had guns. The Nandis didn't. They just had bows and arrows and spears. Yeah. The Nandi managed to resist the British. Not for 1 year, not for 5 years, for over 11 long years. Yeah! Actually, the entire resistance, if we don't include the period, the 11-year period when there was serious war, was actually from 1890 all the way to 1906. Of course, it ended when the British played dirty. Yeah, they assassinated Koitalel Arap Samoei. Now, if you know the Nandi Hills area well, and you know where the Nandi Bears Club is, where it stands today, yeah, a very posh, nice club, that was the spot where Koitalel Arap Samoei was called to a peace meeting, yeah, by a Mzungu intelligence officer by the name Richard Menhatsagen, or Colonel Menhatsagen, if you like. And what this colonel did, as soon as Koitalel Arap Samoei had arrived, these people, he took a rifle and shot Samoei on the back of his head. Unajua Waswahili wanasema ukitaka kuua nyoka, piga kwa kichwa. So without a leader, the Nandi were only able to resist for a few more weeks before they were completely, finally subdued by the colonialists. But we're talking about the history of the Nandi and the Kipsigis. Now, one of the reasons why the Nandi survived for so long, yeah, because what happened is that the British would normally come and burn their crops, kill their livestock, destroy any kind of livelihood, yeah, try to starve them into submission. One of the reasons why the Nandi survived was because they got a lot of assistance from the Kipsigis community. One of the many things they did is that they would hide their flock of cattle with the cattle of the Kipsigis. So the Brits would be sure the Nandis no longer have any cows. Kumbe zimefichwa huko na ng'ombe za wa Kipsigis. Yeah, and that's what kept them going for a long time. Bottom line, these two twin brothers joined at the hip have a very long history. Yeah. And it would take more than a careless comment, yeah, to destroy that relationship or even to make a dent on it. Anyway, let's come back to the present. Now, before we go any further, it's important that we understand the position of the Kipsigis community and the Nandi community within the larger Kalenjin nation. Now, on your screens right now, you should see population figures by 2013 of the various sub-tribes of the Kalenjin community. And you see right there at the top, the Kipsigis community have the largest population amongst the Kalenjin, of course followed by the Nandi. However, and this is very important to note, the Nandi, who have less people, almost by half, are the most influential sub-tribe of the Kalenjin community. That is important to take note of as we analyze what happened at the Nandi Hills. And let's dive straight into it by asking a direct question. Will this politics, this issue brought about by Bwana Kositani, appealing to voters in Nandi Hills to reject Alfred Keter, who is a Kipsigis, and instead look to vote for their own, will this affect the results on August 9th in this constituency? Now, we have already agreed that the Kipsigis are very close to the Nandis. It is very difficult to divide the two and cause a misunderstanding. But there's something else at play here. You see, Alfred Keter is a very popular legislator on the ground. And it's not too difficult to figure out why. He is very close to the people. He is the kind of representative of the people who stays and sticks very close to the people. He is always fighting for farmers, most of his constituents, price of fertilizer, etc., etc. And even when William Ruto's ambitions, and those of his close allies, affect the people of Nandi Hills, Alfred Keter has never hesitated to call them out and defend his constituents. Now, we even have very recent evidence to prove that Bwana Keter is still very popular. In the UDA nominations, Bwana Keter garnered over 10,000 votes. Now, in a party nomination in a constituency like Nandi Hills, 10,000 votes is serious. Hey, those are many votes. Remember, this is not the general election. This is just an election involving only party members. Picture 10,000 people. Ooh. Now, it is very interesting because multiple sources have confirmed to me that all Bwana Keter's opponents got in the region of 2,000 votes each. Now, the runner-up, Bwana Keter, who got 7,000 something votes, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that about 5,000 votes were pre-marked. Ballot boxes were stuffed with those extra votes. And somebody in their miscalculation believed that that was enough to remove Keter. To beat Keter. But of course they were wrong. But Keter still won. That lead was massive. Nobody could catch up with him, even with fake votes. Now, it is no secret that Deputy President William Samoei Ruto and Alfred Keter have never been friends. That is not a secret. It is also no secret that Ruto has been trying to remove Keter from his seat since 2013. He tried in 2013, he failed. In 2017 he tried, he failed. And now we're in 2022. Will Ruto be third time lucky? Well, many people on the ground say no, he won't. Because Keter is now going to run as an independent against the UDA candidate. In fact, there is emerging evidence that this strong opposition the Deputy President has against Keter has helped Keter. because he has ended up receiving sympathy votes. Huyu ni mtu wetu ule anapigwa na deputy president, lazima tumpigie kura. Sympathy votes are a very powerful political weapon. Yeah. In case you didn't know, you now know. You know, the way politicians deal with the rebels, people they don't want, in their party, is different. For instance, the way the late Daniel Toroitich arap Moi used to deal with the rebels, and the way Deputy President William Samoei Ruto deals with the rebels, and the way Raila Amolo Odinga deals with the rebels, are very different approaches. Yeah, let's look at them briefly and quickly. Yeah, then we'll move on. And let us start with the least effective method, moving to the most effective. The least effective way of dealing with the rebels is the DP Ruto method. Kifua, yeah, he goes all out and he makes it no secret that he doesn't want you. In fact, he gets very cruel about it, wanting to teach you a lesson. And we have a very recent example. First of all, Keter was lured back into UDA. Yeah, he was not a UDA member. He was made a UDA member about 4 months ago. And he was warmly welcomed to the fold. When the UDA High Command knew very well that what they were doing was leading a cow or a sheep to slaughter. Because they knew once Keter is in UDA, they'll fix him. And of course the intricate plans were in place. Yeah, carefully, meticulously made. Yeah, but somehow Bwana Keter managed to fool them with this latest nomination. But the whole intention would have been for Keter to lose the UDA nominations. End of his story in politics. That was the idea. Let us move to Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga, the way he deals with the rebels is just to look at them. Yeah, he doesn't do anything devious against them. Yeah, he just looks at them. Many times I believe in his mind, he knows these people will go round and round and finally they'll come back to me. And indeed, that is precisely what has happened in many instances. But at other times, these rebels, some of whom he has helped to enter politics, supported them even with campaign funds, continue to oppose Raila. Some of them take the forefront in insulting the man who introduced them into politics. And in a few instances, Raila welcomes back these people and then trusts them too much, and then they mess him up. Yeah, that's the reality. Raila has a good heart, but hey, politics is brutal, even for an experienced hand like Raila. Now let's look at Moi, the late President Moi, second president of Kenya. In the 80s, there was a thorn in the flesh of Moi, a rebel, a man from Ukambani called Paul Ngei. Moi made several attempts to ensure that Paul Ngei would lose his Kangundo parliamentary seat. And every time Moi failed. But the difference here is that Moi was a very patient man. He used to play his political chess slowly, with so much patience. It was almost unbelievable. And very interestingly, even after he tried to remove Ngei and failed, Moi still appointed him to his cabinet. And even if you don't believe it, this was a very smart move. Remember, this is politics. What Moi was focusing on was getting the continued support of supporters of Paul Ngei on the ground. Because nobody would point a finger at Moi for sure and accuse him of being against their man. The self-proclaimed professor of politics was just being smart, because no supporter of Ngei would come up to him and say, "You're against our man. You want to remove him. You're always trying to remove him from his parliamentary seat." Because Moi would respond, or even his handlers, how can Moi be against him if Moi appointed him to his cabinet? And that would be the end of the discussion. So Moi took his time. Then in 1990, a Kenyan court declared Paul Ngei bankrupt. Now this was the courts, very far away from politics. Again, nobody would point an accusing finger at Moi. Moi handlers must have finally figured out the way to finish this man is to take advantage of his bad habit of not paying his bills. And that is precisely what they did to Ngei. And you cannot hold a parliamentary seat if you're bankrupt. So Ngei had to give up his parliamentary seat. End of the road for Paul Ngei. He was finished politically. And the lesson to be learned there is that instead of being confrontational, just look for a small thing. That strategy works, as Moi proved to us. Now I can hear somebody shooting at me. Chris, you want to tell us all these nomination manenos that have exposed the deputy president, they'll have zero effect on August 9th? Get out of here, Chris. Get serious. Let me respond to that directly. Of course they're going to have an impact, but not directly. All these things are catalysts, building up to something that is going to finish the deputy president. Let me put it this way. The deputy president is obviously very cunning, very smart as a politician. However, he has made the mistake, very fatal mistake, of taking on more than he can chew, more than he can handle. One of the accusations UDA people have against Keter is that he is an Azimio Mole. Now we have no way of proving that for sure. However, I have to admit that is a pretty high possibility, because Keter is too close to some Azimio people. But my point here is that DP Ruto is dealing with state machinery, whose tentacles are everywhere, whose resources are virtually unlimited. So let us assume that Keter is really a mole, that UDA are correct. He will go as an independent, he will win the election, and when he goes to parliament, which side do you think he will support with all his heart? Azimio. This should be proof, conclusive proof, that UDA did not play politics correctly at Nandi Hills. They should have had a plan B. They should have thought through the whole idea of getting rid of Keter, especially at this time when the deputy president badly needs very loyal people, especially from his own backyard of Kalenjin Rift Valley. But the actions of the UDA party have now made the deputy president even more vulnerable, because now even Keter supporters will still be with him if he crosses over to the other side. Sympathy will tell them, they really messed up our man. I don't blame him. It is okay. Let him support the other side. Had the Ruto come, taken a more long-term approach to this, the damage would have been minimal. They would have managed to control everything. Because, for instance, had they just allowed Alfred Keter to win on a UDA ticket and support him to the hilt, while of course remaining guarded, knowing that he's a mole, I'm not saying he is, but I'm assuming they're correct, they would have given Keter very limited room to maneuver in case he's a mole. And if Keter would have insisted on crossing over to the other side, it would have been very easy for UDA to gather support on the ground to finally remove him. Yeah, but this approach, Kifua approach they have taken, has ended up backfiring badly on the deputy president and the UDA cause. Yeah, that should be very clear. And this is a mistake the deputy president has repeated yet again, because he made it in 2017 when he forced some very popular legislators out of office in the Mount Kenya region. Now, chances are high that those legislators, had he left them alone, some of them would be in his camp today. But then the way they were rigged out, of course, leaves somebody so bitter, that crossing over to your side, whatever the ground is saying, becomes difficult. And therefore, what he actually did in 2017 was to groom a strong opposition against himself in the Mount Kenya region. In my view, this will be the undoing of the deputy president in the Mount Kenya region. Did he not have such a strong force of people rigged out against him in the Mount Kenya region? The possibilities are very high that the deputy president would have performed much better. He'd have had much less resistance from the Mount Kenya region. This is precisely why Moi's long-term, pragmatic approach was always a winner. Because he didn't look at tomorrow. He looked at 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. What will this decision do to me that I'm making today 5 years down the line? And that's why he managed to rule Kenya for 24 long years. Now, unfortunately, although Ruto hails from the same province, Kalenjin Rift Valley, as the late Moi used to hail from, his approach is very different. He learned very little, if anything, from Moi and his meticulous strategy in politics, that brought him from nowhere and kept Moi right at the top for decades. Sad, very sad. Should have learned something. The deputy president should have taken some notes. Now, in conclusion, if you enjoyed this video, please share it widely in your WhatsApp groups, on Facebook, etc., etc. That'll really help me, and I thank you in advance. Now, to answer the question I posed at the beginning, you see what happened straight after independence is that Jomo Kenyatta resettled many members of the House of Mumbi in the Rift Valley. Their prime land in the Mount Kenya region was taken. And they were given an offer they could not refuse. Let's take this small plot and then we'll give you acres in the vast Rift Valley. And many Kikuyus moved to the Rift Valley. And there was some initial resistance. But then Jomo Kenyatta used somebody to ease things, somebody from the region. And that person was Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Yes, Moi helped settle a lot of Kikuyus in the Rift Valley. And locals were bulldozed in these settlements, using government machinery, the power of serikali. And this, of course, were the first seeds to be sowed on the ground that led to the tragedy of 2008, and what we saw in the country. But an even more important question is, what is the identity of this man, the main person, the mover and the shaker behind the clashes? Somebody whose name has never come up anywhere. He has never been mentioned at the ICC. He has never been mentioned even by politicians locally. Now, you have to know that this man is very smart. Is a master, is a guru at operating behind the shadows. And when he comes out to make statements, he appears polished. Mpaka even Kenyans loved him so much. Who is this man? Find out the answer in my classic, Let the Blood Flow. so that you understand this issue completely, because it's going to feature very heavily in our politics going forward. And politicians are going to say all kinds of things. Most of the things I suspect they are going to say will not be factual. Yeah? So it's a good idea for you to remain in the light, having understood the whole thing completely. Because let's face it, during the time of the clashes, there was a media blackout. In order to cool temperatures, no information was coming out of the Rift Valley. In fact, if anybody at the time tried to reveal information, they'd very easily get into trouble. So it is not surprising that there's very little information on what really happened to our brothers and sisters, our poor innocent brothers and sisters in 2008, and what really caused it, the real cause. Yeah. Now you can take full advantage of my latest special offer on the book I've written on this subject, which has everything. Yeah. You can see details on your screens right now. And then the magic of this ebook is that those who prefer to read the hard copy can still do so. You see, the ebook is in PDF format, which means you can print it out on any computer printer, and it'll come out in the exact format of a book. Yeah, and therefore you can sit down with a cup of coffee or whatever and read through it, the way you've always read through traditional books. I urge you to take full advantage of this offer, barely $10. Yeah. Before it comes to an end very soon, take full advantage of it. I highly recommend it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll remember to share this video widely, because that will help me, and it will help you too. Yeah. And also it will help us in our mission for a better Kenya, because the more people we reach, yeah, the more it will be a win-win situation for everybody. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.